American Pacific Mortgage is a multi-state corporation supported by mortgage professionals who live and work here in the Treasure Valley. The office is at 8921 Hackmore Drive, just off South Maple Grove. American Pacific Mortgage treats you as an individual, not a number. They are a local equal housing lender with underwriters who know the area. Finding the right loan for you is the goal. They have a wide range of loan products: FHA, VA, refinance, home equity, and reverse mortgages for seniors. More on the web at thelendingsspot.com or phone 629-4959, NMLS number 1850.
And now, your friend in the real estate business, John Adamson.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Property Line Today. My name's John Adamson. I'm the broker with the Realty Management Associates Realty Center team. And my co-host today is
Curtis Mangus with American Pacific Mortgage.
And Curtis is a great lender and an educator as well. Curtis will be doing the workshops that we'll be putting on every month here at Property Line Today. 1 month it'll be on reverse mortgages, and then the next month it'll be a home buyer workshop where he'll go over all the different types of loans and how they work and what might be best for you. Now, the workshops are going to be what day of the week?
We'll typically do them on Wednesday mornings.
And they'll be over in Eagle.
Right.
So if you want to take one of the classes, go to propertylinetoday.net. Let us know, and we'll send you sign-up information. They are free. They're the same classes that realtors take. They get continuing education credit. They've all been approved by the Idaho Real Estate Commission, so no one's going to try to sell you anything. It's just great information that they can use. The other thing, we did a story. It was actually a question that G.I. Joe, I think, is one of our regular listeners from Gowan Field, wanting to know about a program for, I think it was called Homes for Heroes. And it was kind of a marketing gimmick where if you were a veteran, you could contact them and they'd put you in touch with a realtor who would end up giving you a rebate on the commission they earned. We thought that was such a good idea. Instead of joining forces with this big national marketing campaign, the Real Pro Foundation nonprofit talked with its affiliated realtors, all of whom have at least 20 years experience, and they all agreed that they would rebate a portion of the commission to veterans, teachers, firefighters, and policemen. So you're guaranteed to get at least $1,000 back, and the more you buy, the bigger the incentive, the bigger the thank you for serving our community. So more information, check out Property Line Today. Some of the stories that I think would affect you if you're selling or buying is the inventory problems just aren't going away. You saw that article, didn't you?
I did.
And that seems to be like, for instance, at entry-level starter homes, workforce housing, homes under $159,000. In the Boise market, we have less than a 1 month supply. So very tight market. You don't start getting a good selection, a balanced market, a 3 month supply, till you get in about the 225,000 range here in the Boise market. And when we look and see, why don't we have inventory? One is there's just fewer lots to be had. So the lots that are improved, the builders are going to try to get the biggest bang for the buck. And so that's one of the things we're following. Fewer overall projects. With fewer projects or fewer units coming on the market, actively selling community counts for far fewer today than 10 or 20 years ago. So we're not seeing as big of projects. I mean, in years past, we've had these mega projects, and we don't have any of those big communities on the drawing board, like your Lakewoods and your Indian Lakes and those sorts of things. And again, tight construction financing. That, I think locally, that's the biggest problem is it's very difficult for a builder to go get a construction loan to build a home. And right now, you almost have to have somebody go get a permanent loan on the property before the builder can get a construction loan. So for right now, what are the terms if you're wanting to build a home? How difficult is it?
Well, construction money is very tight because it's still considered high risk, and it was one of the aspects of the mortgage business that really took a beating in 2008 and afterwards. And so you typically need a large amount down, right, 20 or 30%, or own the lot. you need a
It used to
significant
be if
amount
a
of
builder
money.
owned the lot, they could just go get the money to build it. But now they want at least 50% down, so the lot doesn't normally cover. They still have to come up with the lot and that much more.
Yeah, so construction financing, it's out there, but it's pretty conservative.
And that's why you see the big companies, the Corey Bardens, the Hubbles, they're still up and building because they're large enough. They have lines of credit that they can draw upon. But, a small builder that maybe builds 5 to 12 homes a year, it's going to be stretching their cash flow to the limit, and they're not going to be able to build till they get the one they just built sold. One of the headlines that I thought was kind of funny was headlined, "Lower oil prices could stall home appreciation." Don't buy into it. The only places that we're seeing homes go down because of the lower oil prices, North Dakota,
Texas,
Colorado.
Texas.
So, if oil is one of your big employers, sure, it's probably going to stall home prices, but it's really good news for all the rest of us because we have more money to spend, homes become more affordable, and then just the overall cost of building is going to be going down as well. The good news came from the National Association of Realtors. They kind of gave a snapshot of what happened in 2014 and what they're predicting for 2015. They're saying existing home sales will likely rise about 7% this year due to a strengthening economy and job growth, leading to a healthier market. In their 2015 housing forecast, home prices have risen for the past 3 years. Altogether, over the 3 years, they've gone up about 25%. Our economist at the Real Pro Foundation feels that homes will probably go up another 21% in the next 3 to 4 years. There could be some speed bumps, primarily if mortgage credit doesn't loosen up a little bit, or if interest rates were to go back up, that could forestall growth. But right now, the preliminary analysis, existing home sales, they finished 2014 actually dropping about 3% in sales. We saw fewer people buying at the end of 2014 than in 2013. But the National Association of Realtors expects sales will be about 5.3% increase in 2015. So that's good news for realtors. They're hopefully going to be selling more homes. And the home values of the homes that they're going to be selling, we looked at 2014, and home prices were up about 5.6% compared to 2013, and NAR is expecting a moderate growth in price of between 4 and 5% for this year. And that's a pretty healthy market, don't you think?
Yeah, I like the consistency. If we can have a 4 or 5% appreciation each year, the stability just makes it so much better.
Right. I think it's going to be a little, I don't think we're going to see, in April of last year, we'd seen home prices go up over 12%. But then they couldn't sustain that, and they went back down. That's why we only had home prices up, what did it say, about 5.6%. But I think we are going to see a little bit higher because we needed to go up 10% for almost 3 years to get back where we were pre-bubble burst. So I think it's going to be a little higher locally than that 4 to 5%. I think it's going to be a little higher, more like a 6 to 8% increase in prices locally. That's my prediction. The other article is where people get their down payment money. I was kind of shocked by this. 65% of the people, they save for it. 33% use proceeds from the sale of a prior primary residence. 14% get it as a gift from relatives or friends. 9% get it from the sale of other non-real estate assets, stocks and bonds. And
that's virtually it. Virtually,
Sure.
Those top 4 account for the vast majority of what I see, and also on the rest of it is such a small amount, it really doesn't even matter.
Doesn't even matter, but there's so many other ways to come up with the down payment. That's what I thought was interesting. Ideas that people don't normally even consider, such as your 401k or pension fund. A loan from a relative or a friend, proceeds from the sale of real estate other than your primary residence, inheritances, IRAs, loans from financial institutions, sale of personal property, life insurance, and there's a lot lease to own credits. So there's so many other ways to come up with a down payment if you can be a little creative. So if that's a major problem, set up a time to come in and meet with us. Let's do some brainstorming. Anyone can come up with these 5 normal ways of coming up with a down payment, but there's about close to 15 other ways listed just in this article alone that people are using to come up with the money they need to buy a home.
Well, and as you and I have mentioned many times, very often people don't even realize that they don't need a down payment.
Sure.
People's good credit.
We met with a couple last week that had enough money to pay cash, and when we started showing them their various options, that they could do a reverse mortgage and get twice the amount of home, they could use half their mortgage and have no house payment, use the other half to maybe buy an investment property. I mean, they ended up leaving with about 10 or 12 different options, and they thought they had one option, and that was to buy a small little house for the cash money they had.
Right. So I can assure you, in most instances, good credit will offset the need for a down payment in many, many of the instances that I see, especially if you've got a middle credit score over 700. Between Idaho Housing, Rural Development, some of these type of programs out there, I would hate to see you miss out on these low interest rates because you were thinking you needed a down payment when you didn't.
And poor credit or low credit is not a forever thing. There are credit rebuilding agencies. There's simple tricks that we can share with you that's going to help increase your score. So if you don't quite qualify, that's another reason the foundation offers success plans, is to get you on the right track so that within 3 months, 6 months, a year, your credit's high enough and you can go out and buy a home. Because right now, credit is king.
It is.
We're going to take a little break, folks, and when we get back, hopefully you've gone to your computer and you've sent some questions on buying, selling, or investing in real estate to www.propertylinetoday.net, or you can call them in right now, 830-2557. We'll be right back. Well, folks, it's time now to answer the questions that you sent us at www.propertylinetoday.net or called in at 830-2557. You want to take the first question, Curtis?
Sure. The first one's from G.I. Joe. Did I hear you say that you would be offering rebates to first responders? You said it was a gimmick, but then I heard you say you were going to offer the program too.
Well, G.I. Joe, we did talk about that because he sent us a question.
Right.
And we did a little research and found out that it's not a government program. It's not a loan program. It's a marketing tool. What they're doing is they're on the internet and social media. They're saying if you're a first responder, contact us and we'll give you money to buy a home. Well, we did a little research and, basically what they're doing is they're selling referrals to lenders, realtors, title companies, that sort of thing. And then really what it is the realtor is giving a little bit of their commission or the lender is paying some of the closing costs. We got together at the Real Pro Foundation and says, well, why do we need to do that? I mean, if we're going to do something to help the local heroes, why don't we do it in-house? So we took a vote and we're going to try a program where if you are a first responder, we're going to have teachers, policemen, firemen, people who have served in active military. Write us a letter. Tell us how you served our country and what owning a home would mean to you. And we will give you, if you buy any house, you can be guaranteed $1,000. But if you buy a home of at least $150,000, you'll get $1,500, $200,000, $2,000, $250,000 home. The foundation will give you $2,500, and you can use that for your closing costs. You can use it to move in, to fix it up, whatever you want is our thank you for making our nation better. And the foundation is going to work with our lenders to see if they'll help with closing costs. We're going to talk to title companies, movers, landscapers, to see if they'll pass on some savings too, because we know the commitment that you've made to make our country better. So without having to pay a big marketing fee to get our names promoted and get the referrals, if this is something you or a family member would like to take care of, go to propertylinetoday.net. Tell us who you are, what you've done. We'll contact you and we'll make arrangements so that when you buy your home, you're going to get a real nice thank you. So thanks for checking in, G.I. Joe. The next one comes in from Isaac. Isaac says, while I was serving time for a DUI, I met a guy that made good money in real estate. He would find someone that just wanted out. They would deed the property to him. He would then fix them up and sell them or just rent them out. He only had to pay the people who owned the property if he made money. And he only would own them for 90 days. Isaac, don't take real estate advice from people you meet in the county slammer. I didn't know people were still doing this. Basically, there are con men who search the public records for notices of default, foreclosure sale notices. They list the property address, they go and they knock on the door, and they're usually from Equity Savers or Last Chance Resources. They always have some catchy name, and they're going to save your credit. And they'll say, we're going to buy the home from you right now for enough to settle the mortgage. And you sign the purchase sale agreement. But in that, on most of the cases I've talked with through Better Business Bureau or the police department, that sort of thing, there's usually in the document a quick claim deed. And when they sign that quick claim deed, they're giving up all right, title, and interest to the property to the con man.
And they don't even know it.
Some of these people go in and refinance the property, take the money and walk. Some of them will put renters in there and just start collecting the rent until the bank actually takes the property away. So if somebody knocks on the door to rescue your home, be very leery, to say the least.
Proceed with caution, John.
Very much so. Because this is one of the oldest cons, I think, in real estate, right?
The next question is from Fred. How do you buy property by just paying the back taxes current? Well, Fred, if you're delinquent on your property taxes, in most states there's a way that you can go ahead and pay those taxes to the county. And over time, if they eventually get too far in arrears, the county will eventually do what's called a tax sale,
right,
in order to recoup those taxes. But it's unusual to have it go on long enough to actually end up taking possession of the property. It does happen, but usually what you get is a good rate of return by paying on those. In my previous state from Wyoming, they paid 16%.
You know, and I have an office in Denver, and a lot of people do buy tax notices, and you go ahead and you pay the guys back taxes current, and then they give you a warrant that pays 6% interest or some rate of interest until they get their taxes paid. And so you make a kind of a guaranteed return, and if for some reason they don't pay you, well, then it's like having a lien on the property and go ahead and foreclose and might end up owning the home. We don't have that in Idaho, but they do occasionally put property up for sale, a tax sale, when people get too far behind on their property taxes. The thing is, it's just common sense. On a $150,000 home in Ada County, the average taxes would be $1,500. And it's going to go several years before the tax sale would come up. There might be $10,000. Who is going in their right mind let a home go for $10,000 that's worth $159,000? You just don't see it. It sounds good, but it doesn't happen. I got excited one time. I saw a property on Fairview Avenue, and you could pick it up for paying like $40,000 in back taxes. But when I went to look at the property, and knowing how the city requires setbacks from the street and from the alley and that sort of thing, it was kind of a pie-shaped lot. You'd be lucky to be able to put one of these little coffee kiosks on it. It was that small a lot, and it was just basically unbuildable. And so a lot of these properties here in Boise that you see being sold for back taxes, they're little bits of property that no one can do anything with. And that's why they let them go into tax sale. So I wish there was an easy way, but you know, Fred, there's just not normally an easy way.
No. Next one's from Bernice. Is now a good time to get into real estate? I know that classes are required and a hard test. What's a good starting wage? Are there benefits such as a 401k? How long do you have to be there before you can expect a raise? Would a bigger company be more apt to hire someone just starting, or is it better to start small and then try to move up?
I don't know where Bernice is coming from. We all know that people who market real estate, whether they're listing agents or selling agents, are paid on commission. So Bernice, there is no starting salary. It's you earn what you make, and it can take several months. Let's say you're just the you just have a knack at it. Well, it normally takes at least 45 days for a contract to close. So if you went out and sold a home the very first day you were in real estate, you're probably looking at 45 to 2 months before you get a paycheck. And then hopefully during that 45 days, you've gone out and found another person so that in 45 days after that, you're going to get a second paycheck. But Bernice, there's no guaranteed pay. In fact, if you look at all the commissions paid in Boise, it would work out to about $2,000 income per agent per year. So would you want to get into a business, Bernice, that only pays $2,000 a year? It just doesn't make sense. And there are no benefits. There's no 401k, no IRAs. There's no health benefits. In fact, if you don't earn any income, you're not even eligible for food stamps. So, you have to be prepared. If you want to get into real estate, you have to, I say, have 6 months to 12 months income saved up and take the classes and pass the hard test. And one thing you did bring up, would it be best to start with a bigger company or a smaller company? A big company is probably going to have an in-house training program where they're going to get you up and running and doing the things you need to do to be successful. If you get with a smaller company, you might be hired on as an assistant and actually help a top producer and learn what that top producer does to be successful. I think they're both good. Personally, I guess if I was Bernice, if you could become someone's personal assistant, I think you would learn more than the classes that you would take at a big company. So that's, and the other thing is too, Bernice, besides there's no set wage or anything, keep in mind that 10% of the realtors make 90% of the income. So you need to work yourself into that top 10% to start seeing, the big money that, realtors like to make.
And it takes time.
It takes a long time to build up a trust and clientele and to learn the information that you need to know so that you can be a trusted advisor to people.
One of my favorite sayings, Bernice, is it takes 20 years to become an overnight success.
Normally.
And so being in real estate or lending or in general is a long-term commitment. It's a straight commission business. And if you're looking for any kind of consistent income in it, you're in the wrong business.
And it's not a good business for part-time people. A lot of people think I'll get my real estate license and I'll work part-time. And it's just not a part-time business. People want you to communicate with them, not just on the weekends, but they want to be able to reach you from 8 in the morning till 8 o'clock at night, 7 days a week. They don't want to have to wait till you get done selling shoes at Macy's. So let's see, Matthew sent us in a question. Let's see. Matthew says, I'm going to start investing in property. Would being a licensed broker help me be more successful or reduce costs? Matthew, I think probably what you're thinking is you'd be earning a commission and you could use that commission for the down payment. Usually here in the Boise Valley, commissions range from 5 to 7%. Let's say it's 6%. Being the selling agent, you'd make 3%. But if you're buying investment property, 3% doesn't go very far. It goes a little ways because you can get into some with as little as 15%. Normally it's at least 20. To get the best rates, it's 25% down. So that would help a little bit, have your money go further. But Matthew, when you become a licensed real estate agent, you then become under the purview of the Idaho Real Estate Commission. And they have rules and regulations that if you don't follow, you're going to end up getting sued, fined, or imprisoned. So, it's one thing to help someone else with their real estate, but if anything goes wrong and they find out that you're actually representing yourself, it kind of puts a little bit of a discoloration on the transaction that you may have been looking out for yourself more so than the client. And that tends to create complaints and investigations and possible lawsuits. Matthew, if you're going to be a serious investor, put together what I call a board of directors, a team of advisors. Have an exclusive buyer broker that's out looking for those great buys for you. Have a mortgage lender that you trust, a title company that will, go the extra mile to help you get them closed. When you have that team together, then you're going to be very successful as an investor. And I really can't see any advantage of being a licensed real estate agent if you're getting in for investment. Can you?
No, I don't think the benefits outweigh the costs.
Well, it costs a
And the
lot of
risk.
money to be in real estate. I mean, not just the classes and the testing fees, but then you have to join the multiple listing service. You have to become a realtor and join the association. There's licensing. There's errors and omissions insurance. And that's just before you ever sell anything, you have to have all that in place. So I just think the initial investment, it would take several sales to justify it. And I think you'd just be putting a big target on your back. Right. So I wouldn't recommend it.
The next one is from Ken. My plan is to find a home in Cuna and get a 100% rural housing loan with an extra $10,000 for fix-up. I will live in it for a while as I get the work done. I then plan to sell or rent. How often can a person get a new rural housing loan? Well, Ken, a rural housing loan is a good loan, but first of all, if you do get some money for fix-up, you can't do the repairs. If it needs carpet or paint, it is possible to put those into an escrow account and have that done, but you can't do the work. You have to have a licensed contractor get it done in order for rural development to go along with it. And so you can buy some quote fixers that need some light work, carpet, paint, perhaps a roof, and be able to finance that in, but you can't do the work yourself. They won't allow it because they want to make sure it gets done right. It has to be done by a licensed contractor. You can, of course, and if you buy a property through rural development, you can sell it. And when you've sold it, get another rural development loan. Or you can rent that property out if you move, but then you can't have another RD loan. You can only have one at a time.
Now, let's clarify that. He could rent the property. Would he have to move out of the area?
No.
Okay.
No,
So,
so-
once you have an RD loan, you could rent it.
Right,
then.
but then you can't have another one.
Right.
And so, how often can a person get a new housing loan? Just as often as you've sold and closed
Right.
your old one, you could turn around and get another one. It's not a great property flipping loan, and that's not what they're designed for, and they're not going to like that if you do it very many times.
And FHA has a similar plan with their 203K, but again, you can't do the work there either.
yourself either.
So, but Ken, I really like your enthusiasm, and I like this kind of thinking outside the box. I've had clients in the past, probably not in the last 7 to 10 years. I used to have several retired veterans, and this was back when getting a loan was a little easier than it is now. But they would go in and buy a foreclosure using their VA entitlement, zero down, get the government or the bank to pay all their closing costs. And then for the next 2 years, their hobby was painting, recarpeting, getting the yard back up into shape. They'd come to me, I'd sell it for them. They'd maybe make $15,000, maybe 20. And then they'd go use their VA, buy another fixer-upper. Well, if you're 55, 60 years old and retired and you have fun painting and fixing things up, an extra $15,000 to $20,000 every 2 years, well, that allowed them to travel, do a lot of things that they wouldn't have been able to do on their fixed retirement income. I had one young man who started with me in his 20s, who was a veteran, who would get a VA loan, and then he would rent it out for a while and go get an FHA loan and fix it, live in it, and then rent it out for a while, and then go back and sell the first one, start the process over. And he's actually built up quite a little portfolio over the years. But it's a slow way. But for the right person, Ken, I think it makes sense.
It does.
Let's see, the Samuels. The Samuels say and I think one of the reasons we're having so many USDA or rural housing is we had an article on rural housing at Property Line Today's webpage. But the Samuels say, on the USDA rural housing loans, you said they weren't available if you had enough money for the down payment on a regular loan. How much is too much, and is there an income limit?
Well, rural development's rule is if you can put 20% down and pay your own closing costs, then you can't have a rural development loan. And so then they figure you need to be able to go conventional if you've got enough money to put 20% down and pay your own closing costs. That's RD's rules, because it's supposed to be for people with limited assets, limited income, that kind of thing. And as far as the income limit, it's currently $74,000 for a family of 4. which is still fairly high. That's over $6,000 a month.
Sure.
There are no price limits on rural development, and for a family of 5 to 8, it's like $94,000. And so for a family of 4, if you make $72,000 a year, which is $6,000 a month, you know, and they
So it's
want,
not for low income, but for moderate income people.
low to moderate income people is the idea with that loan, because it is a government subsidized 100% loan. But if you happen to make $72,000 a year, which is $6,000 a month, they want your house payment to be about 30% of your monthly income, which is $1,800 a month. Well, currently,
With the interest rate so low,
when RD loans are 3.25,
you're looking at almost a
$3.5,
$300,000 home.
yeah, you could easily buy a $250,000 loan if you were on the high side of
Right.
the income limit with no down and have a very affordable payment, probably under $1,500, $1,200 to $1,500.
In case if you haven't heard, right now CUNA is in rural housing. So it was for a while just some areas outside of Caldwell and Middleton. But right now CUNA is in rural housing, correct?
Well, it got hired and fired twice last year.
Oh, really?
In 2014, while they were figuring the census. CUNA is now permanently in RD for the foreseeable future. And a lot of people don't understand the boundaries. And what I would suggest you do, go ahead and contact us at Property Line. I can email you a PDF map that shows the boundaries for rural development. Like going to CUNA, it's Deer Flat Road on the south. And it's Malt Road heading west on the other side of like Caldwell.
And it kind of sounds like, I don't know if the Samuels were like Ken who wanted to do investment property or not, or buy low or fix up and then resell. But the reason I bring up CUNA is if you're looking at rents and you compare CUNA to Nampa, CUNA brings in not quite what Meridian brings in. So right now, a nice 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage home in Boise is going to be just under $1,200 a month. In Meridian, it's going to be about $1,100 a month. And in CUNA, it's going to be about $1,050. Now, if you go over to Nampa, where the prices are very similar to CUNA, it's about $900. So you're going to get higher rents in CUNA. And if you haven't been to CUNA for a while, I think CUNA's done a great job as they've grown a lot of wonderful little neighborhoods and shopping. And nowadays, when you say CUNA, you're not going clear to CUNA. CUNA starts about 5 miles outside of Meridian.
Well, and to talk about the boundaries briefly, between Eagle going to Star, as soon as you hit Highway 16 going to Emmett, the other side of that road is rural development, which is only about halfway.
And see, you used to have to go clear to Middleton before you get into RD. Now you're saying it's just past Eagle, so that would put
Halfway.
Star.
Yeah, all of Star, all of Middleton, and like I said, that's why it's nice to see the map, because if you leave Eagle heading towards Star, when you hit the Emmett cutoff, which I believe is Highway 16, everything on the other side, on the north side, is all rural development now.
And Star brings in about the same rents as Meridian. So that's another good feature. So I think we're going to see a lot more in this rural housing loans.
Well, a lot of people don't understand them. I do 2 to 4 a month. And they're the best loan out there unless you're a veteran. About the only loan that's better than a USDA is a VA.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's about it.
And the nice thing about, they're both zero down, but rural housing doesn't have the MIP or the guarantee. Well, they have maybe a small one, but nothing like FHA or conventional.
It's about half.
Yeah.
It's about, FHA just dropped their mortgage insurance by 1/3. The factor for FHA's mortgage insurance is 0.85. So on a $100,000 house, 0.85, $850 divided by 12, it's about $72 a month. On rural development, it's 0.5, which $500 on 100,000 divided by 12, it's about $42 a month. So it's almost half. And with FHA, you need a down. And
Right.
with RD, you don't.
Right.
So it's certainly a better loan, cheaper loan, both in down
And a
payment.
lot more homes to choose from now that you have Star, Middleton, CUNA,
Correct.
and outside the Caldwell area.
And so don't be afraid. Like I said, we're more than happy to send you an RD map. We just need your name and your email address, perhaps a phone number. We'd be happy to send that to you. It's kind of nice to look at because you can look at it if you're thinking about buying or moving and get an idea of what would be available on that loan.
And one of the phone calls that we got wanted to know if you have to go to the Department of Agriculture to get your loan. I know in the olden days you actually would go make your loan application at the Department of Agriculture. You just go through a regular
Yeah.
lender now, and they do it all.
Well, they have two kinds of loans. They have a direct loan and a guarantee loan. The normal loans through the lenders are the guaranteed, and rural development just guarantees them. But if you happen to have a low income customer who doesn't qualify for a regular loan, rural development does have a direct subsidized loan, which occasionally they'll be able to do for people who won't qualify for a regular loan. But the vast majority
Is
of
it
them...
because it's a lower interest rate
lower-
or a higher
No.
higher qualifying ratios?
No, it's because their income is too low to qualify for a regular loan, so they'll subsidize the payment.
Really?
Yeah, and a lot of people don't realize that loan is out there, but you have to be below like 80% of the median income. You can't have much in the way of assets, and if you can't qualify for a regular loan, they will look at doing that what they call the direct loan, and occasionally they do those as well.
Well, that's why if you're watching Property Line and you hear us say something, pick up the phone and call us at 830-2557, and we might be able to answer it right on the spot, and you won't have to wait till next week. Let's see, Renee. Renee says, I'm sure going 15 years is better than having a 30-year loan, and you said the rate was even lower. So why doesn't everyone go with a shorter time? What are the circumstances where an adjustable rate loan might be the best way to go?
Well, Renee, first of all, the main reason that people don't like a 15-year loan is because the payment's about 30% higher.
Right, because you're making principal and interest.
On a much shorter period of time. It's half. And so the payment is considerably higher on a 15-year loan, and some people either can't buy as much house or aren't comfortable with a payment that high. My favorite term is a 20 because it kind of splits the difference between the two. But that's the reason a lot of people, if they're especially first-time home buyers trying to squeeze into what they can, they do the old standard 30-year loan. But you do need to remember that there are 20-year terms and 15-year terms available as well. And even though the payment is higher, it sure makes that amortization schedule look much better.
Well, then the next question is, why don't they have 40-year loans? Would that make the payment even less?
Well, they did have 40-year loans there for a number of years, and the problem is, due to the math, the difference between a 30-year loan and a 40-year loan was almost nothing.
Okay.
And so they were extending it out another 10 years, and it was dropping their payment $40 or $50 a month. And so you reach a point of minimal return.
Diminishing returns.
By going out so far that it just really didn't make enough difference to be able to justify the difference. There's a difference between a 15 and a 20, and there's a difference between a 20 and a 30, but there's hardly any difference between a 30 and a 40. And so I would always recommend to people when they're looking at buying a home or that they're refinancing, put it on the shortest term you possibly can and still have any kind of comfort level with the payment. It's the best retirement investment that you can make.
Well, and I've talked to some people who had like a 5% mortgage, and they've gone in with the new rates under 4%, and they can go from a 30-year to a 15-year, and their payment doesn't hardly change at all, and they're going to be getting their home paid off in half the time.
Right, and a lot of times, if you've been in it for a while, you can take it from a 30 to a 20, especially if you're dropping the rate, and have a minimal change in the monthly payment, and you just build equity much faster on a 20-year loan or a 15-year loan than you do on a 30.
And you know, the math is kind of complicated. I was asking you a question before we went on today, and I was wrong. I had done my math wrong. But, you know, one of the things is a lot of people think that if you have a 30-year loan and you want to pay it off in half the time, you have to double up on your payment. And that's really not the case. If you were to make an extra payment each year, just one extra payment, it's going to pay off in nearly half the time.
It's not quite that much.
Maybe
It's
17, 18.
It's actually over 2 payments a year.
Because a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll set half the house payment every 2 weeks aside, and every time they have a full house payment, we'll send it in. Because, you know, that way you're making an extra payment.
It's 2 payments. If you pay 26...
Well, that's right. It'd be 26. So you're paying 2 payments a year.
And that starts to get you somewhere.
And that gets you almost half.
Almost half. It's like a 17 or 18-year term, depending on exactly what you have for a rate. But once again, the difference between a 15-year loan and a 30-year loan, the 15-year payment is about 30% higher. It's not double. And so instead of being a $500 payment, it might be closer to a $700 payment. So is it higher? Yes. Is it worth it? Absolutely.
Sure.
And anytime somebody can do that, I can
And I
assure
think if
you
people
it's
get
much
paid
better.
every 2 weeks, I think if you could take half your house payment, set it aside, and when you get paid the next 2 weeks, set your other half aside and then make a payment, I think you're going to be surprised how quick your mortgage gets paid off, and it's not going to be that strenuous of a thing to do. Let's ask Renee's, let's see, it was Renee's question. What circumstances would you recommend an adjustable rate?
Well,
now, right now, you can get a 30-year fixed rate for how much?
3.5.
3.5. You can get a 15-year for
2 7/8 to 3.
what is the lowest you could get, let's say, on a 10-year fixed rate arm?
Probably 2.5 to 2 1/4.
Really?
It's not that much different. It used to be the two reasons people typically take out arms is one, if you're not going to be in the house a long period of time,
You can get a lower payment.
You're going to get a lower payment, and you're like, I'm only going to be in this house for 5 years. I know we're going to trade up, move, transfer, and quite often you could save a point and a half on your interest rate by doing like a 5/1 arm or a 7/1 arm. And what that means is, on a 5/1 arm, your interest rate is fixed for 5 years, and then it'll change to a variable. Or on a 7/1 arm, it's fixed for 7 years. And if you're not seeing yourself in that house or that loan for a long period of time, it's a great way to have a lower rate and to save money.
And I kind of question this because I've had quite a few people prior to the big bubble. And if you remember right back in 2008, they were saying the reason we had the Great Depression was adjustable rate mortgages. And the truth of the matter is, when these adjustable rate mortgages, the majority of them, when they reset, they ended up paying less per month. They didn't go up, they actually went down because the government had worked hard to push interest rates lower. And if you have an adjustable rate, once the fixed rate is up, it's not a guarantee that your interest rate's going to go up. And they do put some caps on them, so that
Some limits on them.
so that it's not going to be a major increase should they go up. The one thing I like about an adjustable rate is if you know you're having a windfall coming in. Because on a regular 15-year or 30-year fixed rate mortgage, if you put a big principal payment down, you're still having to make that regular same payment. But on an adjustable rate, if you put a big chunk down, then they recast your loan and you're just paying interest, principal and interest on that lesser amount. So if you know that you have a big estate coming in or something, want to lower your house payment, not having to refinance, then I would recommend an adjustable rate then. Let's see, I think you have Andrew, don't you?
I do. How do I find an agent I can communicate with? I want to be able to get the agent via live chat or text. He or she must be able to scan and send documents to facilitate a purchase via email. My agent must have a website with a robust search platform that is easy to use whether I'm on the computer, phone, or tablet. Is this too much to ask of 21st century real estate agent professionals?
Well, Andrew, I'm a dinosaur when it comes that way, but I've always tried to be a leader. I was one of the first to have computerized MLS. I was one of the first to have a fax machine, a cell phone, an answering service. And I try hard to do most of what, I'm not sure I do live chat unless you're talking about chatting on my cell phone. I can do that. I do a lot of text messages. I can scan, fax, send documents. I have DocuSign, so if you get a document that needs signed, we can just send it over to you. You can sign it on the computer, send it back. In fact, the last couple sales, except for showing the property and going to closing, I think we did the whole transaction electronically. And so I think you just have to in today's market.
Andrew, the vast majority of agents that I work with meet this criteria, but once again, when it comes to a lender and or a realtor, it's perfectly fine to interview as many as you want to until you pick one that meets your criteria. You know, send them a text, send them an email, ask them to scan and send you some things, look at their site, and if they're not up to your expectations, keep going until you find one that is.
Another good question is, how do you like to communicate? Because everyone's different. Some people want to be called on the telephone. Other people want to receive emails. Other people only want texts. And I don't know if I should text you, email you, or call you unless you tell me. And I've had some people say, well, how come you haven't called me? And I go, I sent you a text Yesterday. Oh, I never checked those. When are you going to send me that home to look at? I did a week ago. It's on your email. So it's real important to let people know what you're checking. In the older days when the phone rang, people used to pick it up and answer it. They don't do that anymore.
And even return calls in a timely
Yes.
manner.
Which I still do. But thanks for the question, Andrew. I think you just need to ask, and I think you'll find that nearly every full-time agent here in the Valley can pretty well do everything you want in an agent. Let's see, Russell. Russell says, at 3.5%, how much less is that each month than a loan at 4.5%? That's what we have, and our present payment is $780, including taxes, but not the homeowners association. Would we save enough to get the lower rate?
Well, Russell, first of all, the most important part of this question you didn't put in here, which is, of course, what is your current balance, so that we could figure the math for you. But I can tell you a point difference in interest rate on a $100,000 loan is probably going to change your payment around $65.
Per 100,000?
Yeah, on a $100,000 loan. So with a 780 payment, if your balance is around 100,000, you're going to save $65 or $70 a month. What's nice is, and we talked about this a little bit on the last show, but I think with where rates are, it's worth repeating. If you have a government loan, FHA, rural development, VA, you can stream loan those loans down.
Without having to go through all the refinance.
Right. They typically will have reduced documentation. You don't have to have an appraisal. And you can, quote, float that rate down. And you still have to do some paperwork and there's some legwork, but it is much easier than the last loan you got. And if it'll save you $100 a month, quite often it's well worth it. And so you need to talk to either your current lender or a lender, and any lender can run those numbers for you. You need to provide them just basically what your current payment is and what the breakdown is, your interest rate, and the balance, and they can run it with current rates and see where you're at today. And if you did a streamline down, what that would do to your payment, and you can figure out if it's worthwhile or not. It doesn't take very long, and I would encourage anybody with an interest rate over probably 4.25 or higher to have that analysis done. Or if you have an
So if
FHA
somebody
loan,
wants to know how much it would cost and what the savings would be, they can go to propertylinetoday.net, and we need to know how much they still owe.
Balance.
What else do we need to know?
a breakdown of the payment, principal and interest, taxes and insurance and mortgage insurance, current balance, what kind of loan it is, and your current rate.
All right.
And based on that, it's an FHA loan. And the other thing is, if you've taken out an FHA loan since about March of 2014, and you have that higher mortgage insurance, they just reduced it by 1/3.
Right.
And so quite often that in and of itself was almost enough to justify a streamline. On a $200,000 FHA loan, it's just dropping the EMI that is going to drop at $85 a month. And so if you could save them 1/4 to 1/2 point in interest, plus the mortgage insurance difference, it could save them $125 to $150 a month in a streamline. Often the closing costs are fairly minimal, and that's a nice raise.
Sure. And I would think it'd be a good question if you go back to the lender where you got the loan and you have an FHA, a VA, or a rural housing, and you say, I'd like to do a rate reduction, and they start doing a refinance, I would ask them why. Because they're going to make a little more money if they do a refinance, correct?
Well, we're a little bit caught up on semantics here. A streamline is a refinance. It's just you're not paying. The key is,
Or
are you
rate
paying for an
reduction.
appraisal? Yeah, it's a streamline really is just you're not paying for an appraisal, and it's typically reduced documentation in order to be able to get that cheaper rate. They're still going to pull your credit. They may check your income. But it's typically not nearly the process that the previous loan was. And like I said, if you can save $100 a month over the course of the term, it's often enough to be able to justify it.
All right.
Okay.
Let's see here. Fly Fisher. This is most everyone this time we've had names. I like it when they have these little handles that they put on. Fly Fisher. I'm seeing some great buys for homes in 55-year-old subdivisions. Are they worth pursuing? Well, Fly Fisher, keep in mind, one of you has to be 55 years or older. I mean, if you're under 55 years, you're not going to be able to buy in the community. One of the other things I think you have to be aware of, several of the 55 and older subdivisions in the Treasure Valley, you're not buying the land. It's almost like a mobile home park. You're buying the house, but you're actually renting the ground. It's on a leasehold. So, the house may be $79,000, but keep in mind that doesn't include the lot.
You don't own the dirt.
Right, and that could be subject to change. So the fact that one member has to be 55. Some of them have restrictions on kids that you have to be a little careful of. But with the limited market and the fact that sometimes you're not buying the dirt, you have to be careful that you're doing that. I think they're a little harder to sell here in the Treasure Valley. I don't think they bring in as much as just a home without the restrictions. When I did a scan right now, as we're filming the show, there are 10 properties available for sale in 55 and over. The cheapest one is $79,000 in Nampa, but it doesn't include the ground. But then it just pretty well goes up to regular prices. They range from about $130,000 on up to almost $500,000 in a gated community. So I don't see, and the other thing is of that, only 2 were already built. The rest were to be built or under construction, so they're brand new. So I don't think there's a real good supply of homes for sale in the 55 and over market right now.
The other thing I'd like to point out, Fly Fisher, is when you're buying it at 55 and over, the good news is you're eliminating the younger people. The bad news is you've seriously limited your pool of buyers if you decide to sell.
That's what I was trying to communicate.
Right, and so that's the downside. If you're buying it at 55 and older, when you get ready to sell, the problem is you're catering to a much smaller, pool of
potential buyers. And the other thing too is sometimes the homeowners association or the subdivision, if you want to rent the property, they have to approve the person renting. So you may be limited or prohibited from renting the house should you want to move out. So that kind of takes away some of the benefits of home ownership. In some cases, they actually have to approve the new owner. So you may go to all the work to find someone to buy your home and have the homeowners association shoot them down for some reason. So some things to be aware of.
Yes. Our last question is from Cammie. Our folks bought us a home back in 2004 with the understanding that once the mortgage was paid off, the house would be ours. We have paid off nearly half the amount of the original note. We would like to take advantage of the lower rates, but mom and dad are now retired and the bank doesn't want to lend to them. Well, Cammie, first of all, it might be a good time to go ahead and get this property into your name.
Well, I was going to say that's your biggest problem right now is they don't own the property.
Right, and I don't know what the circumstances are with mom and dad and why they won't lend to them. We cannot discriminate on age.
Sure.
Unless it's a reverse mortgage is the only reason, because you have to be 62, and it doesn't. So as far as I don't know what's going on with mom and dad to why they can't do a refinance, but it would probably be an ideal time for mom and dad to just sell the property to you and have you make the payments or work something out with them so you could go ahead and take advantage of those lower rates. Because as we said earlier in the show, when rates are in the low to mid 3s on a lot of loan products, I would encourage everybody to check into that if they're considering either buying a house or a refinance, because I don't know what that window of opportunity looks like, but I wouldn't expect it to be around for a very long period of time.
Well, and depending on the price of the home, there's things, you have gift tax that you might look at. Right now it's so liberal. The home would have to be worth several $100,000 before you'd have to worry about gift tax. But Cammie, let's say mom and dad are out driving around and they hit someone on the street. It's an accident. And those people sue mom and dad and they get a judgment. Well, that judgment could take your house away because it's mom and dad's asset right now, not yours. Things happen. You might marry somebody that they don't like or get a divorce from somebody they do like, and they may decide they don't want to give it to you. So because of the liability, the fact they could change their mind, if they were to die, you might have probate problems, you might have problems. Everyone knows that Cammie's entitled to that house when mom and dad die. Wait till mom and dad die and see if all of your brothers and sisters remember it that way. So I think the first thing you have to do, Cami, is get the property in your name as soon as possible. And that would be the first step. And then get with get with a good lender and have them push the numbers. They'll tell you what you need to do in order to refinance and get a lower interest rate, or if it even be beneficial. And you don't have to pay off mom and dad's mortgage to get it in your name. They can go ahead and deed it into your name, and the deed would be subject to you paying the mortgage. But you're going to then be protected. Right now, it's you could lose everything, Cami. So take our advice and get it in your name immediately. Wow. We answered all the questions, and we still have about 1 minute left. So what do we want to leave our viewers with today? I think the biggest news is interest rates for a 30-year fixed rate loan are less than 4%.
3.5. They're less than 3.5.
I never thought, as long as I lived, I would ever see interest rates at 3.5%.
Well, they're the lowest they've been in a couple of years. They were that way a couple of years ago, but we didn't ever think we'd see it again.
In my lifetime, anyway.
Right, and it's just like, as I mentioned before, the only thing better than collapsing gas prices is collapsing interest rates
and
together.
We have them both.
And we have them both, which is, I don't ever remember having them both going on at the same time, which, what a great time to buy a house. To be able to take advantage of that kind of reduction in gas prices and rates, because the rates have dropped enough now that, interest rates in the low to mid threes is enough to make a significant difference in a lot of people's payments or in their buying power. You don't need a down payment, as we talked about.
Sure.
Rural development. There are loans out there that for low down and no down that are available. With rates where they are, and prices are still low, and they're still pretty decent. If anybody's considering about buying in 2015, I wouldn't wait, because I would hate to see anybody miss out on that 3.5% money, because that's a low payment that you could enjoy for a long time.
And one little thing I want to leave, it's not on the webpage yet, but it will be. If you're a school teacher, if you're a fireman, if you're a policeman, if you just got done serving your country and you buy a home through one of our Real Pro Foundation agents, you will get a rebate of at least $1,000 or more when you buy your home. And the foundation is going to be working with the lenders, the title companies, the moving companies to try to even make that a bigger thank you for serving our country. So if you fall into one of those categories, just send us a note at propertylinetoday.net and we'll put you in touch with the right people. That's going to do it for this episode of Property Line Today. Thank you so much for sending us your questions. If you have any questions on buying, selling, or investing in real estate, go to www.propertylinetoday.net. Up in the right-hand corner, it says Ask a Question. Type us the question. If you're watching Property Line here on Channel 11 or Channel 64, pick up the phone and call us, 830-2557, and we'll try to get it on that show. Well, until next week, folks, keep your feet on the ground, but keep reaching for the stars, and may God bless each and every one of you. Bye now.
American Pacific Mortgage is a multi-state corporation supported by mortgage professionals who live and work here in the Treasure Valley. The office is at 8921 Hackmore Drive, just off South Maple Grove. American Pacific Mortgage treats you as an individual, not a number. They are a local equal housing lender with underwriters who know the area. Finding the right loan for you is the goal. They have a wide range of loan products: FHA, VA, refinance, home equity, and reverse mortgages for seniors. More on the web at thelendingsspot.com or phone 629-4959, NMLS number 1850.